What is up, guys? UFC 311 takes place this weekend. I'm really looking forward to the card. We have a lot of excellent fights on here. I'm going to be giving my full card predictions today. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the first fight. All right, our first fight of the card, we have Tagir Bekoev versus Clayton Carpenter. I'm going to be picking Tagir Bekoev to win this one by decision. Clayton Carpenter is good. He's undefeated prospect. On the Dana White Contender Series, fought Edgar Chairez, leaned on the wrestling to get the job done there, and won by submission in his first UFC fights. Last time out versus Lucas Rocha. Looked good in that fight. Got the job done, like I said, by sub. I believe it was a rear naked choke. Tagir Bekoev has more UFC fights, has a good amount of experience. Of course, trains with Umar, Islam, Khabib, and all of them. That team has good submissions. Like I said, he's won his last two fights by submission against Nate Maness, which is a good win. Nate Maness has only ever lost to Umar and Tagir, which is an underrated resume. I don't know why the UFC cut him, but in the fight after that, fought Cody Durden, won by submission. Cody Durden is a similar fighter to Clayton Carpenter. Both of them tend to lean on the wrestling, and I think that with the reach advantage Tagir has here, he's a big flyweight. I think he can get the numbers up, win on the punch count in terms of the significant strikes. I don't see him being super dominant here or getting a finish. I think Clayton Carpenter will be, able to survive any submission attempts. He is a good grappler, but I think that Tagir will be able to pull away with his experience, edge, reach advantage. And, I just can't pick Clayton Carpenter to win via out-grappling Tagir, which is his main path to victory. And on the feet, I do see Tagir just kind of slightly edging it out. But I will say, Bekoev has had trouble making weight in the past. That does seem to hinder his gas tank. Let's not look over the Tim Elliott loss. So that is kind of a similar fighter to Clayton Carpenter as well. Crafty with the grappling. But I'm going to side with Tagir Bekoev here to get a decision, 29-28. Losing the second round and just being able to do enough in the third to get his hand raised. So yeah, I'll take Tagir to start off the card. Our next fight on the card, we have Bernardo Sopaj versus Ricky Turcios. Bernardo Sopaj, in his UFC debut, was looking pretty good, was beating Vinicius Oliveira, who I picked there. And then in the last exchange of the fight, at the end of the third round, got clipped with two nasty hooks and then a flying knee that sent him out cold in one of the best KOs of last year. I think he's going to bounce back here, though, because he was winning that fight, looked good. Vinicius Oliveira is a pretty good fighter. Sopaj has good takedowns, solid on the feet, was landing his own strikes versus Vinicius. And I don't think that Ricky Turcios is the quality of opponent to be able to beat a guy like Sopaj. Ricky Turcios, he's had his UFC fights, has kind of been a win one, lose one guy. Fights kind of like Tony Ferguson, just doesn't really stand out anywhere, but, he's tenacious in there, He got a good takedown against Raul Rosas Jr. last time out, but, Chiwiwi was able to reverse position, get the rear naked choke. I think that Bernardo Sopaj is a very good grappler, and I think that he's going to be able to just hold down Ricky Turcios, who is going to come in flailing punches, not defensively sound in terms of being able to stuff a takedown. I think that Bernardo Sopaj will be able to level change on him, hold him down for the majority of the fight, land some ground and pound, just do fundamental striking on the feet, and just win a clean 30-27 decision. I think Ricky Turcios, he just needs to have more danger in terms of his punch power, maybe a submission threat off the bottom, to be able to really give Bernardo Sopaj anything to worry about. Because Turcios, he's tenacious, like I said, but Bernardo Sopaj just has him covered in terms of the fundamental skills. And like I said, I think he's going to get the takedowns, be fundamentally sound on the feet, get jabs going, throw some straight shots down the pipe, and win a 30-27, looking good and having a nice comeback fight after getting brutally knocked out. So yeah, I'll take Bernardo Sopaj 30-27 decision here. Our next fight on the card, we have Rinya Nakamura versus Murin Gafurov. Now, this is an interesting one because I was high on Rinya Nakamura when he first got into the UFC. I believe he made his UFC debut on an Apex card, which was technically the road to the UFC final, and then he made his actual UFC debut on the Max Holloway versus TKZ card. And, in his last two fights just really hasn't impressed me too much versus Fernie Garcia and who was it? Fernie Garcia and one of the tough contestants from the McGregor Chandler season. The guy just really wasn't all that good. Carlos Vera or something like that, I believe his name was. So two guys that just really aren't UFC level. And all he really did was kind of just, chain wrestle him, didn't get any ground and pound off, wasn't looking too educated on the feet as well. And on the other side, Mutin Gafurov, he's not a great fighter at all, but in his last outing, looked to have kind of turned it around, looked to have kind of been putting it all together a little bit, landing good combinations on the feet with the boxing, getting some takedowns of his own. But I think the dude's name was Kang. That guy just isn't a great level of competition compared to Rinya Nakamura. Look, I think Rinya Nakamura should get the job done here, but I really don't think he's going to go that far in the bantamweight division. I do see him losing that undefeated record soon. Like I said, I was high on him, but unless he really impresses here in this fight, I think he's going to run into trouble in the UFC very soon. But I don't think that Mutin Gafurov is going to be that trouble. On the feet, Mutin might be able to give him a little bit of trouble, but, I do see Rinya Nakamura getting the takedowns and just being able to stay safe in top position. I'd like to see some submission attempts and some ground and pound, but I'm going to lean on the side of caution here and pick Rinya Nakamura to win a 30-27 decision. Our next fight on the card, we have Aline Perez versus Carl Rosa. Now, I'm going to pick Aline Perez here. Pretty athletic girl compared to other WMMA fighters. Most WMMA fighters aren't super athletic. Aline Perez does have some strength in the clinch. She's got good judo throws, and she's got good submissions, and I think she has a fighter spirit, which is the big difference between a lot of WMMA fighters. I think she'll be a little bit grittier here, does have a little bit of power on the feet. I think she got a spinning back fist knockdown versus Jocelyn Edwards on 302, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really watch WMMA too closely, but I'm going to take my girl Aline Perez here to get it done and twerk on her opponent after she subs her. So yeah, give me Aline Perez round 1 submission. Our next fight on the card, we have Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. Now, this is a very interesting one to call because it's hard to trust Grant Dawson after that loss he took to Bobby Green, where one jab sat him down and that was all she wrote. Now, Grant Dawson, he's a very good grappler. He's shown that in his last 2 fights and his whole UFC career. Beating Damir Ismagulov, that was an impressive performance. Had Ismagulov in some really terrible positions there. Then, I believe, in the fight after that, did get clipped by Bobby Green, put down. He's bounced back in his last 2, stunk it up versus Joe Selecki, very similar to Aliyev in his last fight, and got the decision win there. And then, in his last fight versus Garcia, looked good, got the ground and pound TKO with the elbows. He seems to be starting to put it all together now with the ground and pound and being able to get guys out of there and really impose his will. But Diego Ferreira, in his last outing, Mateusz Rebecki won the first round, pretty comfortably dropped him, maintained some top position. But CDF was able to turn that around and was able to turn the tide in the second and third rounds, landing nasty body shots, really good straight shots upstairs, hurting Mateusz Rebecki on the feet, blistering his eyes, closing him up. And Mateusz Rebecki, in his last outing, won in a very hard fight versus Miktabek Orbay. So that win, aging well. Ferreira, he's getting up there in age. He's 40 now. So you got to always worry about these fighters aging overnight. But he has very, very good ground game, in his fights versus Gamrot and Dariush. Made those pretty competitive. So, if he's able to kind of make it competitive with those guys who are better on the feet, in my opinion, than a Grant Dawson, I think if he gets Grant Dawson tired in the second and third, he can really put a beating on him. So it's going to be interesting. Grant Dawson's a super high level wrestler, great entries, and he stays in top position once he gets there. You can normally trust him to do that, but you really can't trust him on the feet whatsoever. The chin does seem to be suspect. I think he has durability issues, and I feel like if he has a hard fight where he's really facing adversity, similarly to Mateusz Rebecki versus Ferreira, I could see Grant Dawson breaking and cracking under pressure. He seems to be a guy that, likes to cruise to an easy decision or just impose his will with his grappling. I think if someone can nullify the grappling, it's going to be a hard time for him. But I want to pick Grant Dawson to be safe, but I'm going to take Carlos Diego Ferreira here to win via decision. I'm going to take Ferreira to win via split decision here. I think he can turn back the clock, really do good with the defensive wrestling, and on the feet, I think he can start to hurt Grant Dawson, drag him into deep waters. He's got good jiu-jitsu, so you can always factor in a fluke submission, if you will. So yeah, I'll take Diego Ferreira here to win as a sizable underdog. Probably not going to bet that fight, but for the pure pick, I'm going to lean on Ferreira. I think he'll be able to get the job done. I think that Grant Dawson, even though he seems to be putting it all together now, I think he's going to get set back another step. He seems to be one of those fighters that are going to have an unlucky career. Our next fight on the card is a short notice replacement. I haven't been able to do any tape study on this one, but Zach Reese has a different opponent than Tagir Dumas. I was going to be picking Zach Reese there to win. Zach Reese is now taking on Azamat Bekoev, and I believe that Azamat Bekoev is a LFA champion, a Russian, and I think it's going to be a hard fight for Zach Reese. Honestly, I've never watched the guy fight, but he does seem to be, one of the brother styles, and I think that style could be troublesome for Zach Reese. Zach Reese, he's a very good striker at range. He does have good jiu-jitsu, but he's kind of like a middleweight country boy Charles Oliveira in a way. In his UFC debut, got slammed on his head by Cody Brundage, but he was trying to lock up an armbar there, which he won on the Dana White Contender Series with. So I don't blame him for going for that submission, and he kind of just got fluked realistically. And then in his next fight, looked really good versus Julian Marquez, got a first round knockout, and he has good striking, good rangy kicks, good uppercuts and straight shots on the feet, powerful, and basically just schooled Jose Medina in his last fight for 3 rounds. But you can't knock out Medina. He has a chin of steel. So I think that Zach Reese, he might be lacking in the takedown defense, but Tagir Dumas does go for the wrestling a lot, so he may be preparing for that. But I think that with these Russians, man, their wrestling base is just so strong a lot of the times. It's difficult, and I think Zach Reese, he's the type of guy that will pull up submissions and give up position and go to his back and play the guard game, and I don't think that works ever against Russians. I mean, when was the last time you saw one of these pressure grapplers lose to a triangle choke or a guillotine or something along those lines? Aliv versus Selecki, I mean, so many different examples, but I'm actually going to pick Bekoev to beat Zach Reese here on short notice. Our next fight on the card, we have Jailton Almeida, the Alligator, versus Sergey Spivac. Sergey Spivac, a great fighter. Gotta love Tom Aspinall. Look, I call Jailton Almeida the Alligator because that's how he does all of these fat, plotty heavyweights. He literally just grabs them, gator rolls them, and fucking kills them. Easy as pie. He's way more athletic than all of these blobs that he's fighting. And Sergey Spivac is mostly a grappler. So he's going to attempt to play the jiu-jitsu game, try to reverse position against the fence and stuff like that with Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida is twice as fast, twice as athletic, 3 times as strong. He's got every advantage in the book. He's getting better on the feet as well. And look, realistically, I can look past that Curtis Blades loss. I picked Curtis Blades by 2nd round knockout in that fight, but I do think that Jailton Almeida is very good. Seems to be like he's on the sauce, so we got to take that into consideration. And he tossed Curtis Blades around like a fucking ragdoll in the 1st round. I really think he was on his way to getting a dominant position and being able to find a submission in that fight, but Curtis Blades, crafty vet, was able to get the hammer fist going and got the job done there. I think that Jailton Almeida is going to do the exact same thing to Sergey Spivac that he did to the blob Alexander Romanov in his last fight. I think he's going to front kick, double leg, sub in the 1st round, rear naked choke. Sergey Spivac as well. Remember that Surreal Gone fight? I remember when Sergey Spivac was walking out to that. It literally looked like he was about to cry. I think that he's kind of a mentally weak fighter. I don't hate the guy or whatever, but I've noticed that in the cage, even in his last fight versus Marcin Tybura, where he was able to get the job done, reverse position after getting taken down and was able to get a sub. He's not getting a sub on Jailton Almeida, sure thing. And even after that, he looked like he was super emotional, like he was worried that he wasn't going to win the fight. He always looks scared to death. And Jailton Almeida, cool as a cucumber, he's going to go in there, take him down, beat him up for a little bit. Sergey Spivac's going to quit, roll over, give up his neck. Round 1, rear naked choke. around the 3:30, 4-minute mark of the round, right before round 1 ends, Jailton Almeida is going to get the submission. He'll have him down within 90 seconds, and he'll have him out of there within 5 minutes. So yeah, super confident in Jailton Almeida here. He's going to get the job done. The alligator is going to go to work. All right, we have a future UFC bantamweight champion taking on Ronnie Barcelos. Peyton Talbott taking on Ronnie Barcelos. I've been very high on Peyton Talbott for a long time. And look, I think he's going to be able to get the job done here via round 1 finish. I'm not going to count out a submission there because I do believe he's been working his grappling with the Rutulo brothers, you know, those jiu-jitsu guys. So I think he's been working his grappling. But of course, the path to victory he normally goes for is just walking his opponents down, beating the fuck out of them. Perfectly timed countered shots, nasty knees up the middle, beautiful countering ability in terms of catching kicks, landing return fire, really good head movement, super cerebral in the cage, super nonchalant. You know, I've talked about Peyton Talbott's skill set before. I really do think he's going to go far. I think it's going to take a very high level of competition to be able to beat him. I think his style is very good. As long as he can handle pressure grappling, I really don't see anybody being able to just go band for band with him in terms of the striking. He's kind of like a more well-refined in terms of his skill set, Jiri Prochazka-like presence in the cage, just, you know, willingness to move forward, eat shots, won't be denied mentality. I think that he's going to go really far in the bantamweight division. I'll take him here to win by a round 1 knockout. Look, I get that, you know, Ronnie Barcelos is a step up in competition. Look, Peyton Talbott's minus 1,000 for a reason. It's going to be easy work. And I think that he does win this fight in under 1.5 rounds. Whether that is a submission after dropping him or just winning the fight by TKO in some manner, head kick, elbow, something along these lines, I think that Peyton Talbott will make relatively easy work of Ronnie Barcelos here, who, let's not forget, did get finished by Umar Nurmagomedov in brutal fashion. Smacked his head against the canvas there, so he has taken some damage. Isn't a guy that gets finished too often, but, you know, look, he does get hit clean, and I think that Peyton Talbott will be able to either find a kill shot on the feet and just, you know, sleep him or knock him down, wrap up a choke. He did win his first fight in the UFC by submission against Nick Aguirre, so I'm going to take Peyton Talbott to win via first round TKO. Super, you know, crazy pick there, I know. But I think this kid's the truth. I really do think he's going to go far here. All right, in our next fight, we have Billy Alenka stepping in on short notice for Johnny Walker to take on an orc from Lord of the Rings. No, it's not actually an orc from Lord of the Rings. It's Bogdan Guskov. And I was actually picking Bogdan Guskov here to beat Johnny Walker. I'm unfortunate that this fight got canceled because I was actually really looking forward to this one. It was going to be a guaranteed goober-like finish. It was either going to be a Johnny Walker jumping flying knee, or it was going to be Bogdan Guskov sending Johnny Walker to the shadow realm and making him do 3 cartwheels on the way down in a absolute hilarious fashion. But, you know, look, Bogdan Guskov is actually a pretty good fighter. I picked him to beat Ryan Spann. Doesn't have the most well-rounded game, isn't the most refined striker, but he does have a really good eye for a knockout. Decent head movement, throws shots from weird angles, and he's got power in his hands. You can't deny that. The dude throws with nasty intentions. I mean, the way he knocked out Pauga and Ryan Spann was really impressive to me. I like watching this guy fight. I want to see him fight Anthony Smith as well, because it would be literally 2 duplicates of each other in the cage, and that would be a guaranteed knockout for Bogdan Guskov as well. But I would like to, you know, say that I hope Johnny Walker isn't, you know, super injured or whatever. Hopefully he's able to come back and fight soon. But I will take Bogdan Guskov to beat Billy Alenka by round 1 TKO. I think that Bogdan Guskov is really the truth in terms of his power in his hands, decent boxing, you know, crafty shots. I think he's able to get the knockout here in the first round. I think we're going to be in for a really fun little scrap here. He's like an orc in the octagon, man. It really fights like an orc from the Lord of the Rings as well. Just no technique, no, you know, head movement, or not head movement, but he doesn't have like a great guard. He's not rolling under shots. You know, he'll just lean back real quick and then, you know, fire a 2-piece. Just a simple 2-3 down the middle. And he'll run at you. He's really aggressive, and I think he's going to get the job done here. He's a fighter I really enjoy watching. And I think that the Johnny Walker matchup was perfect for him to be able to get a crazy highlight reel. But I think he's able to get the job done here over the short notice replacement. Not going to act like I know a ton about Olenka's game. Haven't done the tape study there, I'll be honest. But I'll take Bogdan Guskov regardless because he has been prepped. And I rate him in terms of his hand speed, his power, and his orc-like ability to get a finish. Alright, our next fight on the card, we have Kevin Holland versus Reinier de Ridder. Dude, Kevin Holland is lazy, complacent, injury prone, low fight IQ, no willingness to win, throws fights out the window. You know, he's just the most unreliable fighter of all time. Doesn't fight with a smart game plan. Doesn't have super great durability. No heart, no determination. He's just naturally talented. I'll pick him here to beat Reinier de Ridder because I think that Reinier de Ridder is absolutely dog shit. I think he's horrible, and I don't think that he has anything for Kevin Holland here realistically. With that being said, Kevin Holland will probably just give up a takedown. He'll be looking up at the camera making like a peace sign or something, acting like he's all cool, then get taken down and get subbed. Kevin Holland pisses me off to just the highest levels. I hate picking him. I almost always pick against him. You know, I picked MVP against him. I think I trust him to beat Roman Dolidze, which was, you know, a fluke. But, you know, Kevin Holland is just the fluke master. You never know what you're going to get out of him. He's the definition of a win one, lose one. He'll knock out Buckley in the first round looking like a world beater. And then he'll just give up halfway through the fight with MVP and JDM. Higher level of competition, I know. Not shooting takedowns against Wonderboy Thompson. He's just an idiot out there, man. Just an idiot out there. No, you know, determination to win and do good. Just fucking throws all game plans out the window at all times and just goes in there and tries to have an ego contest. And he normally loses. So frustrating to watch. But like I said, I think Reinier de Ridder is absolutely dog shit. Look at the striking that he put on display against GM3. Kevin Holland went to a split decision with GM3. It doesn't matter, dude. Reinier de Ridder literally strikes like a fucking drunken person stumbling out of a bar at 2 a.m. He has no striking ability whatsoever. He's super unathletic. He's built like a fucking chicken. Super, you know, just not fast twitch muscle fiber. No ability to strike. No defense on the feet. You know, goofy in his grappling transitions. Look, I know he has good submissions, but he just shouldn't win this fight whatsoever. Kevin Holland is way more athletic, so much faster. He should be able to absolutely school Reinier de Ridder, leg kick him at range, hinder the legs, you know, make Reinier de Ridder unable to walk, hinder the calves, destroy the inside leg with the inside leg kicks, stomp at the knees with oblique kicks, and light him up with straight shots down the middle. You know, like I said, the knockout over Buckley, you got to be a talented fighter to knock out Buckley, unless you're Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, I'm so glad he got knocked out by Kopylov. I loved that knockout. It was early stoppage. Dude, Kopylov could have gone up and soccer kicked him in the head. Let's be real. But beyond that, look, Kevin Holland should win this fight by knockout in the first 2 rounds. I'll pick him here to win by second round knockout, and he's going to fucking lose. I already know it. This should be an easy fight for him, dude. This should be an easy fight for Kevin Holland. Reinier de Ridder has zero ability to strike, man. The only reason he knocked down GM3 with the sloppiest left hand you'll ever see in your fucking life was because GM3 is about 40 years of age. He's tired at all times. You know, was hungover in that fight from the night before. And, you know, got clipped with a bad shot. GM3 has taken hella damage. He's old, has no striking defense. He's not Kevin Holland on the feet. Kevin Holland should be able to go in there and just plant a right hand directly on the chin of Reinier de Ridder and knock him out cold. He's got good jiu-jitsu. I'm pretty sure he's a brown belt or a black belt. You know, he was able to get takedowns and maintain back position against MVP, who doesn't have good grappling. We've seen that. But, you know, Kevin Holland has proven multiple times that he has good submissions. The win over Michael Chiesa, you know, you look back to that. this fight should be very similar to that. Michael Chiesa, slow twitch on the feet, not good striking, just kind of a grappler. Kevin Holland should be able to find a knee up the middle, land a right hand over the top, finish him, maybe wrap up a submission of his own. But you can never fucking trust the man because he throws fights. He has no tenacity in the cage. You can't rely on him to throw out a good amount of volume. But I'll pick him here. Probably going to bet on him, which is stupid. But, you know, he went from like a minus 180 favorite to an underdog now. So I think Kevin Holland should really win this fight fucking easily. But you know, if there's anybody that's going to throw a fight to fucking one championship fraud RDR, it's Kevin Holland. So I'm not going to be surprised when he fucking loses. But give me Kevin Holland by knockout. My last fucking words before he loses by submission. And look, I don't give a fuck about the fact that RDR was a double champ in ONE FC. I've watched enough ONE FC cards to realize that all of their MMA fighters are absolutely fucking dog shit. They're all terrible, dude, except for DJ. Dude, none of those guys are fucking good over there, man. The dude he lost to, Anthony Malenkin or whatever, big guy, whatever. The dude's slow as an oaf. Shit. And Kevin Holland's way more crafty, has so much more finesse. He's quicker, more athletic, more diverse in terms of his game. Dude, Kevin Holland should be able to fucking smoke him. But you know that Kevin Holland throws fucking fights out the window, man. And, you know, we've seen him out grappled by Brunson and Marvin Vettori, which is a concerning look. But both of those guys are better than RDR. Both of those guys are way better than RDR. Dude, you know, the two losses to Anthony Malenkin by TKO over there in ONE are terrible looks. I don't give a fuck if it's for a little pussy-ass ONE championship belt. All of those guys are fucking dog shit, dude. ONE championship doesn't have a single good MMA fighter signed on the roster. Literally the worst level of competition you've ever seen in your life. That Anthony Malenkin dude literally just lost his belt to the most unskilled, big brawlic slugger you've ever seen in your life. They're fighting in a ring. They don't even use, you know, cage control or the fence most of the time. Dude, ONE championship's a joke. RDR's a joke. He's a fraud. I picked GM3 to beat him. I thought GM3 was going to be able to get the job done there. And even a guy like GM3, where he was going to have to beat RDR at his own game, I still thought that, you know, he was going to beat him. An old, withered, drunk GM3 with a crafty submission. That's about it. All he's got up his sleeve. He was outstriking RDR. He was beating him in the wrestling in the first half of that fight. You know, got dropped once. Kevin Holland ain't getting dropped by RDR. As long as he uses some takedown defense and uses some goddamn common sense, he'll win this fight. Athletic advantage, reach advantage, striking advantage out the wazoo. He should be able to just plant a 1-2 on the chin of RDR, win by knockout. Second round. But dude, I'm stressed over this fight because it pisses me off that people think RDR is good. And he's probably going to beat Kevin Holland, but he just shouldn't. But I'm picking Kevin Holland by round 2 TKO. That's my last words. Here comes the money. Money, money, money. I'm picking Money Moicano to get the job done over Beneil Dariush. Now, there's been plenty of people. I've seen people that actually have really good picks. I don't know, man. Beneil Dariush is a bad matchup for Renato Moicano, man. Dude, bro, come on. We know Beneil Dariush is washed up at this point. Arman Tsarukyan. You know, that's a real thing. Tsarukyan absolutely stained him in the first round. Charles Oliveira absolutely stained him in the first round. And look, he's had some good wins over Gamrot and, you know, his past wins. But look, he's taken a fuck ton of damage. He's gotten knocked out early in his UFC career. You know, got knocked out by Alex Hernandez, got knocked out by Edson Barboza, got knocked out by Tsarukyan, got knocked out by Charles Oliveira. I think the chin is absolutely gone. And the biggest thing to note, in terms of his skill set overall, his speed on the feet looked absolutely gone versus Tsarukyan in his last fight last October. And he just looked done, man. He just looked done. Then, you know, got finished in the first round by knockout, right hand on the chin. I don't see either of these guys being able to sub each other on the ground in terms of Dariush and Moicano. I don't think Moicano is going to sub him. But I think that Moicano, he's going to be quicker on the feet. He's going to be a little bit fresher on the feet. All Beneil Dariush really has in terms of the striking is a sloppy overhand left, like a drunken dad bod overhand left, and then a big body kick. And we saw Benoit Saint-Denis, a guy who's way more athletic, way more talented and better than Beneil Dariush, go out there and got schooled by Renato Moicano in the first round. You may bring up the second round where Benoit Saint-Denis showed warrior spirit and was able to win the second round with no eyes. He didn't have a single eye there. Both of them were closed. He won that second round blind. Shows you how good Benoit Saint-Denis is. But look, Renato Moicano clearly game planned perfectly for that fight. BSD always starts his fights out by throwing a big left round kick to the body. He always starts his fights like that, with that big round kick to the body. Renato Moicano caught it, swept him off his feet, won the grappling exchange, which was very impressive to me, and got on top position and rained down the nastiest ground and pound you've seen in a minute. And I think he could do something very, very similar here to Beneil Dariush, which, let's not look over the fact that this is the exact same stylistic matchup, essentially, as a Benoit Saint-Denis. Great grappling, decent pressure in terms of the takedowns, big body kicks and left hands on the feet from a southpaw position. Exact same stylistic matchup if you really want to look at it, just at a surface level. But Benoit Saint-Denis, I think that he's much stronger, faster, more athletic than Beneil Dariush. And I think that Moicano, look, the only reason he lost that second round, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Benoit showing the heart of a warrior. Look, he dislocated his shoulder or some shit in that second round, still stayed calm, and was able to just get that fight stopped by doctor stoppage. And look, I think that the shoulder injury concern is definitely real, but I trust that Renato Moicano wouldn't be taking this fight if that was going to be an issue here in this matchup. I think that he's going to have healed from that injury. He has taken a lot of damage. You think about the RDA fight, Rafael Fiziev, Jose Aldo knocking him out. But look, Beneil Dariush, all he's got on the feet is a big overhand left. And in terms of the grappling exchanges, I think that Renato Moicano, former featherweight, he's going to be a little bit quicker. I think he's going to be a little bit sharper. I think at this point in his career, he's got much more to fight for. And look, let's just be real. The momentum is just completely on opposite sides. I know they're the same age, but they're at vastly different points in their career. Moicano had already taken some time off before he's been active now and on a streak. Beneil Dariush was active, but now he's taken some time off. I think that Renato Moicano is going to be able to get the job done here. I'll pick him to win by decision in a relatively competitive fight. But Renato Moicano, he's looking at number one contenders fights. He's looking at Justin Gaethje. He's looking at, not Dustin Poirier because they're teammates. He's looking at a Justin Gaethje fight. He's looking at maybe an Arman Tsarukyan fight after Arman loses to Islam. He's looking for big money matchups, number one contenders fights in his next fight. Beneil Dariush, he's talking about retirement. And as soon as you hear the word retirement come out of these guys' mouths, you normally don't want to pick him. He's got kids. He's got, a lot of stuff going on outside of the cage. I also don't think that the gym he trains out of is very high level. Moicano getting good work in with Grant Dawson and Dustin Poirier. Really good looks in terms of a good grappler and a southpaw to give you good looks for a Beneil Dariush matchup. Like I said, prepared for a very similar stylistic matchup last time out in a Benoit Saint-Denis. I'm picking money Moicano. I've picked against him 3 times in a row against Dober, Jailton Turner, and Benoit Saint-Denis. No way I'm picking against him again. I think he gets the job done here, 30-27. Drops Beneil Dariush in the third round to really put a stamp on it. Shows some craftiness, getting takedowns off of catching kicks. I think he's going to, slip under the big left hand of Dariush, land some good counter shots. Does have good combinations on the feet. And I think he's going to win this fight by decision. I got to go with money Moicano here to get the job done. And I think that Beneil Dariush does hang up the gloves after this fight. So, yeah, I really don't get you guys with the motherfucking Beneil Dariush pick, the Rainer de Ritter pick. Dude, they should fucking win these fights, man. They should win these fights. I really do think that Moicano is going to show levels out there. I don't even think that Beneil Dariush was ever all that good. You guys that picked Beneil Dariush to beat motherfucking Charles and Arman were tripping. But, I really just don't think he's all that great of a fighter. He's got tools that, are good, but I think that Moicano's just got much more on the table. He's going to be able to handle him everywhere the fight goes. Speed advantage, has more to fight for. And I think that He's going to come in there with a lot more energy and get the job done by decision, landing, 50 to 60 more significant strikes, just putting out way more volume. And I think he's going to be really clutch in terms of staying safe on the ground, not rushing too much with attacking submissions or ground and pound, position over submission in a way. And I think that he'll be able to get the job done here over Beneil Dariush. Don't be surprised if Beneil Dariush is able to get the better of some scrambles and get in some good positions, but I got Money Moik here getting the job done. Our next fight on the card, we have the fight that I am looking forward to the most on the entire card from an entertainment perspective, the light heavyweight bout between Jiri Prochazka and Jamal Hill. Now, going into this matchup, a lot of people are picking Jamal Hill, and their reasoning normally comes down to Jamal Hill is the cleaner striker, he's got better defense, Jiri gets hit too much, Jamal Hill's going to clip him, knock him out, just like Ferreira did. I think that we are massively overrating Jamal Hill. Now look, Jamal Hill's a good fighter, but where are we seeing his huge advantages? Is it really in the defense? Jiri Prochazka simply chooses to keep his hands down. And look, let's just be real. Jiri Prochazka, look back at, the Ozdemir fight and the Glover Teixeira fight in particular. Decent head movement on display. He knows how to carriage block when he needs to. Look, Alex Pereira can make anybody's defense look bad. And I know that Jiri gets hit, in the Ozdemir fight and the Reyes fight, he got rocked. Of course, Alex Pereira knocked him out twice. Rakic was touching him up. But, look, let's just not act like Jamal Hill doesn't have shitty-ass technique, shitty-ass defense, and he doesn't get hit just as fucking much. Jamal Hill, every single time he throws a jab or a lead hook, where's that lead hand going? Where's that right hand going? Straight down to his hip. He's fucking touching the floor with his lead hand every time he throws his sloppy jab or the right hook, which is his best punch, I would say. And look, it's the same thing with the rear hand. Every time he throws the straight left hand, that shit is looping and it goes all the way down to the floor. He's super exposed for it. Go back and rewatch his first fight versus Darko Stocic. Look, the commentary was definitely mentioning it, and I mentioned it going into his last fight versus Alex Pereira. I said his hands fall too low, Alex is going to counter him with a left hook. And in this matchup, Jiri Prochazka isn't the same type of calibrated counter striker as an Alex Pereira, but let's not act like Jamal Hill is some defensive wizard acting like he's fucking Peter Yan out here with the boxing defense, when every time he throws a shot, that shit's going all the way down to the floor. When he throws uppercuts, look back at the Glover Teixeira fight. Don't get me wrong, he was landing some good uppercuts in that fight, but every time he was throwing an uppercut, that shit was going all the way up to Rosed, chin all the way up in the air. Jamal Hill fights with his chin way up in the air. He's one of these guys that, lean back, really likes to look at his work, and he gets clipped with counter shots a lot. Glover Teixeira touched him up. In his UFC debut, got touched up by Darko Stocic. And even in the Thiago Santos fight, Thiago Santos was finding his moments as well, especially in the third round. I think that Jiri Prochazka is just as good, if not better, in terms of the offensive striking, in terms of the hands especially. He has way more power. Let's talk about the power. Jamal Hill, who's Jamal Hill ever fucking knocked out? Johnny Walker, the biggest glass chin in the whole UFC, who gets knocked out in every fucking fight? I don't take any stock in that. That basically, counts as a decision win. A knockout over Johnny Walker counts as a decision win against anybody else. So you have the Johnny Walker win. Good performance, but I don't really think that goes to show that you have a ton of power just because you knocked out Johnny Walker. And who else has he knocked out cold? Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute is a nobody, man. Jiri Prochazka has absolutely killed dead Ozdemir, who's a good boxer, and also Reyes. So I think the power really goes to show that it's on Jiri Prochazka's side. I think he has more natural punching power than Jamal Hill. And even in the Alexander Rakic fight, when Jiri landed that right hand, that fight was fucking over. Rakic melted. And Jamal Hill, I mean, he absolutely landed the kitchen sink on an older version of Glover Teixeira, who had already taken all of the damage in the Jiri Prochazka fight. Still wasn't able to get him out of there. He doesn't have great shot selection. I think the main advantage that he holds in this matchup is with his kicking arsenal, because he's actually got very underrated kicks, good kicking game, very good front kicks, leg kicks, body kicks, and head kicks. Was able to hurt Glover Teixeira on various occasions with that left high kick. Of course, Jiri got hurt with the left high kick by Alex Ferreira in his last fight, so he's going to have to definitely watch out for that shot. But look, Jamal Hill, he doesn't have great footwork. I think Jiri's going to be the one in the middle of the cage, and I think he's going to be marching down Jamal Hill and landing good shots of his own. I think Jamal Hill, he's good at putting volume out there. I think he'll win round one slightly. But, dude, Jiri Prochazka, in terms of the mentality, Jamal Hill doesn't have the character or the willingness to win to be able to go in there and beat Jiri Prochazka. You know, aside from the fact that stylistically, I don't hate this for Jiri. Both of them don't have good defense. I think Jiri has more punching power. I'm more impressed by knocking out Ozdemir, Rakic, and Reyes than a standing TKO versus OSP from Jamal Hill. You know, a volume exhaustion TKO over Thiago Santos. That doesn't really show that you have great punching power or sniper-like accuracy. Jiri Prochazka, he's very good at landing straight shots. He's good at countering, not like a Ferreira, but he does have good counter shots. Jamal Hill, oftentimes, when he's leaving his hands down, I think that he's open to get clipped. I think Jiri's going to clip him on various occasions. And like I said, just in terms of the mentality, the fighter spirit, Jiri Prochazka brings so many intangibles to the octagon that I simply can't pick against him. Jamal Hill, you know, comes into fights really just not looking like he's in great shape. He's not an athlete that really stays in great shape year round, I don't believe. Has like a beer gut. He jiggles when he fucking strikes. He's not the same type of athlete that Jiri Prochazka is. Jiri Prochazka, I think he's faster. I think he's going to have an athletic advantage here. He's in much better shape, more of a physical specimen, stronger. And look, Jiri Prochazka, in his life, all he cares about is MMA. No distractions, just purely focused on martial arts. All he cares about is fighting in the UFC. Don't get me wrong, I definitely think that Jamal Hill is a fighter that takes his career very seriously. But he's a guy that he's constantly ranting on Twitter, talking shit on YouTube, and I think that the outside distractions in his personal life and stuff like that seems like a guy that does enjoy himself outside of the cage. I think that's all going to catch up with him here against a guy like Jiri, where, you know, Jamal Hill, I think he's got like 6 damn kids. Jamal Hill constantly getting pulled in different directions outside of the cage. Jiri Prochazka is not dealing with any of those types of distractions. Jiri Prochazka is laser focused, locked in on the mission at hand. And I trust him to get the job done here. I'm going to take Jiri Prochazka to win by second round knockout. Like I said, I think Jamal Hill will win the first round on volume, but Jiri, he's going to be marching him down, landing shots of his own, landing counter shots when Jamal Hill puts his hands down. And I think that Jiri's power will really translate a lot more than Jamal Hill's. And Jiri, look, he got hurt by Alex Ferreira, but I don't think Jamal Hill is going to be able to hurt him the same way. I still trust in Jiri's chin. And look, Jiri Prochazka, he bring a big storm. He's literally bringing a storm with him into the fucking arena. I feel like Jiri Prochazka, when he walks out, it's like the fucking clouds come overhead, lightning starts striking, the forest fires in California are going to start raging. They're going to form a ring of fire around the arena as soon as Jiri starts walking out. The fires are going to be going, lightning's going to be striking, and Jiri Prochazka is just going to channel the energy of the MMA gods and go out there and fucking will his way to a victory again. Look, Jiri Prochazka, he's super aggressive. I think that Jamal Hill, he's going to go out there thinking about all the shit that he's talked. He's got to back it up. Jiri Prochazka is not going to be worried about any of that. He's super humble, just focused on the task. And Jamal Hill, he's going to be worried on the back foot, trying to be super technical, win the outside foot battle. land every shot perfectly. I think Jiri Prochazka is just going to maraud on him, eat all of his best shots, really make Jamal Hill question himself, start to tire out. I think that Jiri Prochazka has a lot better stamina over the course of the fight than Jamal Hill. If this fight goes to a decision, I actually favor Jiri Prochazka winning, even if it goes to a decision, not just by knockout, because I think he does have the better cardio, and I think he's going to break Jamal Hill similarly to how he did Rakic. I think Jamal Hill, he's going to start landing. He's going to realize what he's doing just really isn't working. Yuri's going to start landing. Jamal Hill's going to start questioning himself, and all of the chilling outside of the cage, the Achilles injury, which is a huge factor here. Let's not forget, both of these guys had to vacate their belt due to injuries. What injuries were those? Well, Jiri Prochazka's fucking shoulder blew out, and Jamal Hill ruptured his Achilles. So the Achilles injury is actually a lot worse, and that happened a lot more recently. So definitely don't forget about that Achilles injury. I think that is definitely going to be a major factor in terms of Jamal Hill being less explosive moving forward in his career. That's a very, very nasty injury to have to recover from. So I think Jiri Prochazka is going to be a little bit fresher in there. I think he does have the better chin even after the Ferreira KOs. And I think he's going to go in there, maraud on Jamal Hill, and get the second round knockout with an elbow against the fence after just smothering Jamal Hill, taking his best shots, returning some of his own. I wouldn't be surprised if Jiri gets the takedowns going here in this fight, because Jamal Hill doesn't have great takedown defense. Give me Jiri Prochazka to win this fight by round 2 knockout. Maybe he gets a ground and pound TKO if he's able to hurt him, get a takedown, land some elbows, but I'll take Jiri Prochazka just on pure willingness to win. Give me the Samurai. He is one of my favorite fighters, so I might be a little bit biased here, but I'm taking Jiri. All right, we move on to the championship bouts for this card, the co-main and main event. I'm really looking forward to these fights. First one here, the co-main event of the evening, we have Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab Dvalishvili. I'm going to be picking Umar Nurmagomedov to win this fight via submission. I think that Merab, look, I picked against him in his last fight confidently. I thought that Sugar Sean O'Malley would be able to do better with the takedown defense and find something on the feet. He wasn't able to do so. Really wasn't planting his feet and having any confidence there with his counter striking in that fight. Merab was able to get the job done with the takedowns, and he did his thing. He did his thing realistically. But Sean made that fight close. Sean did good, and look, that fight was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. He had his moments. Of course, he hurt Merab to the body in the 5th round, and that really is a concerning look for Merab going into this Umar Nurmagomedov matchup. It seems that maybe he isn't the same beast he was when he fought Peter Yan. I think something was just in the air that night. Better stylistic matchup in a way because of the way that Peter Yan has to be in close to fight, but I think that he had a much worse performance against Sean O'Malley than Peter Yan. And I picked him confidently against Henry Cejudo. I knew he would win that matchup, but look, Henry Cejudo, he had success in that first round, and he won that first round convincingly. Rocked him on the feet with a good left hook, was able to get in top position, out-grappled him at times, good little reversal on the ground, and I think that all of these moments really show that Umar Nurmagomedov is going to easily beat Merab Dvalishvili. I think that Umar Nurmagomedov is on a completely different level. I picked Corey Sandhagen to beat him. Really was underrating Umar Nurmagomedov's striking going into that matchup. I didn't rewatch enough of his fights. When you rewatch his earlier fights, even though they're not against the highest level of competition in, a Brian Kelleher or a Ronnie Barcelos, his striking is very, very good. He also beat Nate Maness, which is a pretty good win. The only people to beat Nate Maness, like I said, Tagir and Umar, so that's a good win. And his striking and his kicking arsenal is just insane. I highly underrated it going into the Corey Sandhagen fight, because in his recent fights against, Beksad Al-Makan and stuff like that, he's really leaned on the classic Nurmagomedov style, the takedowns, the Dagestani handcuff, the leg cross. Really shows to have a excellent, well-rounded skill set. And look, Merab, he just doesn't have anything on the feet. He doesn't have any submissions. The only thing he can do to people is out-hustle them, snatch up single legs, get him down for a little bit, push him up against the cage, and knee him in the thigh. That's all that Merab does. And don't get me wrong, he's been able to beat world-class, GOAT-level fighters by doing it. Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley, Henry Cejudo. His resume is absolutely insane, and he is just an enigma in this sport. Not skilled whatsoever, just the utmost willingness to win and the pressure of a fucking goddamn rabid animal. Just snatches up your legs, doesn't get tired, and he's a nightmare to fight against. But the thing is that he has zero finishing potential, and he didn't look that dominant against Sugar Sean O'Malley, who is a guy that does play at range a little bit in terms of the striking. And Umar Nurmagomedov, man, in his last fight versus Corey, a well-rounded fighter. Dude, I think Corey Sandhagen gives Merab a hell of a fight in terms of his anti-wrestling. I think it might go similarly to the Sean fight, but look, Umar was landing excellent kicks on the feet, really good hands, his boxing's improved, and he's a Nurmagomedov, man. He's been training with, under Abdulmanap, with Khabib, Islam his entire life since they were fucking children, getting literally trained for this exact moment to become UFC champion. I don't think these guys are ever gonna fucking lose. I'm done picking against this family and this group of guys. I think that they are the best MMA fighters to really ever walk the face of the earth if you want to put a group of guys together. You have your John Joneses and stuff like that, but in terms of just a close-knit team of guys that are super dominant, that literally have basically never lost, Usman Nurmagomedov undefeated, Khabib undefeated, Umar undefeated, Islam Makhachev one fluke punch loss. These guys are basically like 150-0 in professional MMA. It's absolutely ridiculous. And like I said, they've been training for this exact moment their entire lives. And Umar Nurmagomedov, he has a good gas tank. He'll be able to go all 5 rounds. We saw that in his last outing. Not against the crazy pressure of Merab, but I think Merab's going to be a lot more tentative because of the submission threat of Umar Nurmagomedov. Let's not look past his insane, really, really high-level submission game. He's very good at wrapping up chokes, and I think that Merab is going to be super hesitant to shoot his takedowns because of that submission threat. And that's all Merab has in terms of offense. If he tries to strike with Umar, Umar's going to piece him up. And I think that Umar doesn't have a ton of punching power. He's really only TKO'd Ronnie Barcelos, but I think he's going to be able to land a lot of clean strikes on the chin of Merab. And I won't be surprised if he's able to hurt him badly on the feet. And this is why I'm picking him by submission and not by TKO or decision. The reason I think he's going to be able to get a submission here is because Merab, his first instinct is to always grab a single leg, shoot a takedown, something along these lines. And Umar Nurmagomedov, specifically for this fight, he's been training with Islam and Khabib very, very closely. And look, those guys are also submission wizards. And you can't think that Khabib hasn't been watching the tape, looking at Merab, studying his style, thinking of a way to be able to snag a submission, and teaching Umar how to get that position, being able to secure that choke. Because Khabib was always a guy that looked for submissions, and I think that in this championship fight against a guy that is a heavy pressure grappler, that shoots sloppy shots a lot of the times, we saw him get hurt versus Cejudo and then shoot a takedown. I think that Umar Nurmagomedov will be able to hurt him with a left hook or a left high kick very, very similarly to Cejudo. I think that Merab's going to shoot a panic takedown at that point, not going to be fully all the way out, and I think Umar Nurmagomedov is going to choke him out cold, because I know for a fact Merab is not going to tap out. I think we're going to get a highlight reel submission where Umar Nurmagomedov chokes Merab out cold and leaves him flat on the canvas. I really do. I think it's going to be something really slick, a ninja choke, a Doris, something along those lines. I really do think that Umar Nurmagomedov is going to dominate 30-27 the first 3 rounds of this fight. You know, reverse position against the fence every single time. I just simply cannot see Merab, who is a strong bantamweight, but he's not as strong as Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar is very athletic, very strong. I think he's going to be able to reverse positions along the fence easily. I don't see him getting taken down at will. He's got excellent grappling in his own right. I won't be surprised whatsoever if Umar is able to land takedowns of his own here. We saw Henry Cejudo get in top position against Merab. Dude, Umar Nurmagomedov is like a elite version of Henry Cejudo in terms of the striking and in the wrestling and submissions. He's like a much better Cejudo on roids, man, for real. I think that Umar Nurmagomedov, it's either going to be a left hook or a left high kick on the feet that hurts Merab. Merab's going to shoot the panic takedown, and Umar, he's going to either get a nice takedown and get a submission from that position, or he's going to wrap up something nice from the front headlock position, something along those lines, a ninja choke, a Doris. I think he's going to be able to choke out Merab Dvalishvili out cold this Saturday. I think really it's a high likelihood that Umar gets the submission this weekend. I think he's going to be doing a lot of damage to Merab on the feet, and Merab's just really going to be panic shooting. I think he's really going to be going for it, and I think that he's eventually going to run into something that Umar Nurmagomedov has planned for him. I could see Umar even getting his own takedown, really beating him up. Merab tries to scramble. Umar just drags him to the ground with a body lock and gets the rear naked choke. I got Umar getting a submission here this weekend over Merab. I think Merab's time is up, but if Merab beats Umar Nurmagomedov, I'm fucking done, because this dude has beaten everybody and he's not good at fighting. It's crazy. He's literally a different level of built different and just the most hustle mentality of all time if he's able to get this done. But I got Umar. I like Umar to win this fight a lot here. I think that he's going to be able to continue Father's plan and get the belt here. In front of Khabib, in front of Islam, I think that whole team's going to have a great night. We move on to the main event of the evening. Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. Look, I think people are picking Arman just off of vibes. Realistically, I don't think he's going to win this fight. Look, Arman Tsarukyan, very impressive. You look back at their first fight on short notice, Arman did really good. Gave Islam a hard fight. But, dude, Islam was never in danger in that fight. Yes, Arman has good grappling. He's able to get some good positions off. But, dude, Islam is almost never in danger in any of his fights. Literally, the only adversity Islam Makhachev has ever had in his entire career was a little bit in round 2 and round 4 versus Dustin Poirier, where I do believe he had staph infection. Something was off with Islam that night. When you look back at the rest of his career, he's literally never had a moment of adversity. Look, Arman Tsarukyan is a great fighter. His striking's improving. He's got dynamic kicks on the feet, fast, very, very good ground and pound. His ground and pound is definitely his #1 best attribute. And he's got great wrestling and grappling. Doesn't go for a lot of submissions, but he's a very good, well-rounded overall fighter. Look, the win over Beneil Dariush, a good look, but he's not going to be able to KO Islam Makhachev. I just don't see that happening whatsoever. And look, Charles Oliveira, he did good in that fight. He fought off the submission attempts well. But, look, Oliveira was not that aggressive in that fight. He was fighting with the fear of the takedown, and that really opened up the striking for Arman Tsarukyan, where he was landing some good combinations. But, look, the only damage that he really did in that fight was on the ground with the ground and pound. Arman Tsarukyan's path to victory against Arman Tsarukyan's path to victory here against Islam Makhachev, in my opinion, the only way he's going to be able to win this fight would be a doctor stoppage or by decision. The only way he will be able to have advantageous moments in positions and in the later part of this fight will be if he's able to open up that cut on Islam Makhachev, that DP opened with the elbow. Arman Tsarukyan's got nasty ground and pound. You saw what he did to Charles, cut him open badly with the elbows, TKO Joel Alvarez on the ground. If he's able to get in top position against Islam, the elbows will be a problem, because I do think that he's seen the cut, the scar that Islam Makhachev has on his head, and I think he's going to target that with those elbows. If he's able to cut that badly, I could see the doctor maybe stopping it, or, the blood really bothers Islam in terms of the later part of the fight, and Arman's able to squeak out a split decision. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not really super worried about Islam Makhachev losing this fight. I'm a big fan of Islam Makhachev, and like I said, I'm done picking against these guys. I'll never pick against them again. I think Islam Makhachev is the best fighter in the UFC. I think that he might be the best MMA fighter to ever step into an octagon. Islam Makhachev is ridiculously good, and he's one of the best strikers in the UFC. He's one of the best grapplers in the UFC. He's one of the best clinch fighters in the UFC. He holds every advantage in this matchup. Arman Tsarukyan is a great fighter. He's very well-rounded, but he's worse at everything. When was the last time, other than Dariush, who is a glass-chinned old man realistically, has Arman ever hurt somebody badly on the feet? He hasn't. And look, he has been hurt on the feet. You look back at that Silva fight, got dropped with the left hook. I mean, I can kind of look past that as, a lucky punch, but still, Islam Makhachev is the best striker that Arman Tsarukyan has ever fought against. Islam Makhachev is off the charts in terms of his striking. Counter-striking, his accuracy, very composed, defensively sound, rarely gets hit. Look, you look at Arman's fight versus Oliveira. He won that fight cleanly, and it wasn't super competitive late in the second and third rounds. But Oliveira, he had his moments, especially with the submission attempts, and I can definitely see Islam Makhachev threatening some submissions, especially to get out of bad positions if Arman is able to get the better of some grappling exchanges against the fence. I think Islam can use Kimuras, guillotines, stuff along these lines, darces, to be able to lock Arman Tsarukyan up in a choke for a second. I don't think he'll submit him at all. I think Arman has very good submission defense, but I think he'll be able to use that to get out of bad positions. We saw Charles be able to do that. Charles, of course, most submissions in UFC history, so that's a big threat from Charles' side, but Islam does have very good submissions as well. And Arman doesn't. He has zero finishing ability with submissions. His only real threat is elbows from top position. So you got to think Islam's going to be staying away from that at all costs, and I trust him to. I do. And I don't see Islam Makhachev getting a ton of takedowns here either, to be honest. We saw him struggle to take down DP. We saw the competitive grappling exchanges that they had in their first fight. I mainly see this fight playing out on the feet with the striking exchanges. I do really think that the grappling will nullify on both sides. Like I said, Islam really wasn't able to get down DP in the middle of the cage. Arman Tsarukyan, very high-level grappling. Volkanovski was doing all right with the takedown defense in his fight with Islam Makhachev. I'll get to the Volk fight. But I just don't see this fight really taking place on the mat all that much. I think they're going to scramble, and they're eventually both going to stand back up. I just don't see either of these guys getting super advantageous positions over the other. And I don't think that they're going to just continuously grapple like they did in their first fight, where they only had to go 3 rounds. I think both of these guys, in the back of their heads, they're going to know that it's going to be a little bit futile to try to push their grappling against the other. It'll make them more tired. And I think these guys are going to kind of settle into a striking match around the 2.5, 3 round mark. And I trust Islam Makhachev in a striking matchup all day. I'm picking Islam Makhachev to win this fight by knockout in the 4th round. I think that he's going to be able to knock out Arman Tsarukyan and finish him off with ground and pound. The reason being is, look, Arman has gone 5 rounds before. He went 5 rounds with Gamrot, but Gamrot's a shitty striker, and that really did end up being kind of like a grappling match. I don't think that either of these guys are going to want to do that with the other here in this matchup. And when they're on the feet striking, Arman Tsarukyan, he had his moments against Charles. He had his little first round knockout against Dariush. And he's done all right on the feet in previous matchups. But it's just not at the same level as Islam Makhachev. And Arman, he's a pitter-pat guy on the feet. Doesn't have a lot of power. Doesn't really have a lot of finishing potential. good clean combinations with the boxing, and he's got some fancy taekwondo kicks, but I just don't think that's going to be a problem for Islam. Islam Makhachev is just ridiculously dangerous on the feet compared to Arman Tsarukyan, and I think he's levels above him, and I think he's really preparing his striking for this fight, because I think that he kind of knows that the grappling is going to cancel out. I think he's going to be more prepared on the feet. I think Arman's going to look to really get the grappling going early, and I think he's going to fail. And then I think Islam's going to run away with it. Like I said, he's just so dangerous on the feet, and he's such a good striker. Look at the way he beat Charles Oliveira. He dropped him with a mean Russian right hook. Dominated that whole fight aside from like one or two little sweeps and scrambles with Charles. Arman Tsarukyan, he had his fair share of adversity, got clipped with a couple right hands. Charles didn't throw too much, but he did touch him up a little bit. Islam Makhachev dominated Charles Oliveira, made him quit, and like I said, dropped him badly with a right hook. Charles has taken his fair share of damage. Arman didn't drop Charles. Islam did. Islam has a lot more power on the feet. Like I said, dropped Charles Oliveira. The Volkanovski 1 fight. I can live with a 5-0 scorecard for Islam Makhachev in that fight. I scored it 4-1 Islam. I think Volkanovski got the 5th. But, dude, go back and rewatch that fight. That fight was nowhere near as close as we thought it was the day of. I remember that night, dude, that night when I was watching Volk versus Islam 1, I was with the boys, drinking, having a good time, feeling the vibes. The crowd was cheering, Islam's a wanker, good vibes, back when Volk was in his prime. And I was delusional enough to think that Volkanovski won that fight. On the rewatch, every single time I rewatch it, I think Islam is more and more dominant every time I rewatch it. Look, outside of the last minute and a half of that fight where Islam knew it was in the bag, that's the only time Volk really had any success. That really is the last minute and a half of that fight where Islam shot the takedown, Volk hit him with the counter right. Didn't drop him, but stopped him from getting the takedown. It looked like he dropped him, and then he got in top position and stood up for himself. Did good enough to steal the round, but Islam was winning the beginning of that 5th. And look, we look back at that Islam Makhachev fight. Islam was a little bit bruised up and shit at the end of it. We thought Volk won, but Islam just kind of wears damage badly. Islam Makhachev literally dominated the striking and the grappling of each of the first 4 rounds in the Volkanovski 1 fight. Easily, dude. He dominated that fight. Dropped him not bad, but dropped him to a knee with a left hand in that first round. Followed it up with a head kick and a knee. Very good Muay Thai on display from Islam Makhachev. In the second round, hurt him again with the left hand. Volk was going for that little switch stance combination. Islam fired a mean left hand straight down the pipe, snapped his head back. Volkanovski nodded at him. Islam landed a nasty head kick in the third. I mean, Islam was landing kill shots on Volkanovski, wobbled him badly 2 times in that first fight. And of course, we all saw what happened in that second fight in the rematch. It doesn't matter that Volk was fatting off the couch. He's got at least 2 good rounds in him, no matter what, at that level. That's the featherweight GOAT we're talking about, Volkanovski. Well, the former featherweight GOAT before Ilya knocked out Max Holloway. But look, Islam Makhachev knocked him out with a head kick. And then in the Dustin Poirier fight, he looked fantastic on the feet with the boxing, landing 3-piece combinations, uppercuts, body shots, going band for band with the hands with Dustin Poirier, which, may I say, was Islam's hardest fight in his entire career. And, I said that Dustin Poirier had a better chance of winning the lottery and getting struck by lightning in the same day than he had at beating Islam Makhachev. I made that video. That was hilarious. Great fight. Loved that fight. But Islam Makhachev really did show levels there. Dustin Poirier, he was aura maxing in that fight. Literally gave it his absolute all. He knew it was his last time out there in terms of getting a title shot. There was something in the air that night with the DP. Blowing blood out of his nose, yelling at Islam Makhachev, blew out his fucking knee and was still going for it. The walkout was on Lafayette Street in New Jersey. the Paulo Costa curse where Costa was on the card as well. There was a lot going for DP that night. There was a lot of stuff going for DP that night. And that was Islam's hardest fight. But, look, Dustin had just prepared for Benoit Saint Denis, a southpaw grappler. Very similar stylistic matchup. And let's not act like Dustin Poirier isn't one of the best lightweights of all time. And Islam Makhachev went out there, first round, schooled him. And then, second and fourth had a little bit of adversity. But he was dominant in that fight. And then, of course, got the clutch choke at the end. Really showing grittiness, determination. And I think that those fights with Dustin Poirier going into deep waters, getting that striking experience on the feet, going into deep waters with Volkanovski, 5 rounds in Volkanovski's backyard in enemy territory, the whole crowd's booing you, still going out there, landing nasty shots on the feet, imposing the will with the grappling, doing the Dagestani fucking clinic at all times. I think that he really just is the best fighter that we've ever seen in the entire sport. And I don't see him losing to Arman Tsarukyan. I think that in the first 2 rounds, Arman Tsarukyan's going to go apeshit with the takedowns, trying to get in top position, landing elbows. I think Islam Makhachev's going to be on top of that, stuffing most of those takedowns. And look, I think that Islam Makhachev is going to stop a lot of the early takedown attempts from Arman Tsarukyan. And Islam Makhachev is a very, very, very good starter. Finished Volk early in their rematch. Finished Charles early in their fight. Always wins the first round of these high-level fights. Won the first round against Volk. Won the first round dominantly against DP. He's a very, very good, fast starter. Which, Arman, he's going to need to start fast here because I don't see him having a ton of success in the later rounds unless he does get the cuts, like I said. Look, Islam, he's a very fast starter, so I don't see Arman banking around early. And Arman doesn't have the deep water striking experience that Islam Makhachev does against Volk and DP, who are better strikers than Arman. And he was able to hurt both of those guys. He's been able to hurt the last 4 of his opponents, didn't drop DP, but hurt him on the feet, he did. He's been able to hurt his last 4 opponents with the striking. I think that Arman's going to gas himself out trying to offensively wrestle in the first 2. Like I said, Islam's going to start really good and really clean. He's going to steal those first 2 rounds. Arman's going to have gotten tired, and then they're going to settle into a striking match. I think Islam's going to dominate the 3rd round, land a ton of significant strikes. I really do think we're going to see Arman start to slow down, and I think that in round 4, Islam Makhachev is going to finish this fight with his Muay Thai. I think it could be a knee in the clinch. I think it could be just a combination of punches followed up by a head kick. I'm going to take Islam Makhachev to get a round 4 TKO here over Arman Tsarukyan and finish out Father's plan for the night. I think Team Khabib does go undefeated with Tagir, Umar, and Islam Makhachev. And look, man, I just think that these guys are on a different level. I think that Arman Tsarukyan, he already grew up rich. He's not fighting to be able to provide for his family or anything like that. I think that Islam Makhachev, he's going to be fighting more for his legacy and less just for the accomplishment of it. Islam Makhachev, he's fighting for GOAT status, and that is a big level of drive. I think that Arman Tsarukyan, he doesn't need this in his life. He's driving around a Lamborghini. He's got the fucking family money. He doesn't need this in his life. Islam Makhachev has been bred from a young child from birth to be in this exact spot. He's going to have Khabib in his corner coaching him through it. I think that he's just not going to lose in front of Khabib and Umar, who's going to have just gotten the belt. All the momentum, everything has led up to this. 6+ years of Father's plan in the making since 2018 for Abdulmanap, Khabib, that team. I really do think this is something special that we're witnessing in the sport right now. And like I said, I got Islam Makhachev by round 4 TKO. I think that these guys are just on a whole different level. And I think that he's really going to show it here in this fight. I don't really think we're going to see a competitive decision. I think that's what a lot of people are leaning towards. 48-47 Islam. I think he gets him out of there. I think it's going to be, 3-1 Islam going into... I think it's going to be either 3-0 Islam going into the 4th or 3-1 Islam going into the 5th, and he gets a 4th or 5th round TKO. I see him hurting Arman on the feet. Like I said, Arman, he has been dropped by a left hand before from Silva. I think that Islam Makhachev is able to find a similar left hand here and get the job done by TKO. You think of him as a grappler, but I think it's no surprise now that he has nasty striking and power on the feet. Those are my UFC 311 predictions. Thank you guys for watching the video all the way through. Enjoy the card this weekend. Like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And have a great rest of your day.